Sometimes the quietest places hold the loudest truths about who we really are. Savannah Whitmore stepped off the bus with a composed kind of hesitation, the warm, salty breeze curling around her like a memory she hadn't asked for, but couldn't ignore. She wore a loose white blouse, high-waisted jeans, and oversized sunglasses that slightly slid down her nose. The air in Outer Banks tasted like salt and nostalgia. Everything around her seemed to move slower, like time had finally decided to take a breath. Parked under a crooked pine tree was a sky-blue 1986 Ford F-150, its paint faded by decades of sun and sea air. Leaning casually against it, arms crossed and a wide grin on his sun-worn face, stood her dad, Dr. Graham Whitmore, barefoot, tan, and wearing a t-shirt that read, "Save the Turtles." "Savvy," he called, spreading his arms wide. "You made it. The Queen returns." She dropped her duffel and hugged him tight, inhaling that familiar mix of salt, wood, and something vaguely like lemon-scented bug spray. It had been 3 years since she last came down for the summer. "You're still driving this dinosaur?" she asked, eyeing the truck. He grinned. "She's a classic. Not old, experienced. Just like me." The ride home along the beach road was filled with scattered thoughts and uneven laughter. He told her about a turtle migration project he'd been tracking, and how it was consuming most of his time lately. "But I'm all yours by next week," he promised, tapping the steering wheel. "Till then, enjoy the peace. Walk the beach. See if any of your old summer crowd is still around." Their beach house stood just where she left it, white clapboard siding, peeling in places, a wraparound porch with a faded blue hammock still swaying in the breeze. A wind chime made from old driftwood clinked softly above the door. "Home sweet, slightly moldy home," her dad joked as he hoisted her bag over his shoulder. After unpacking, Savannah changed into a soft dress and tied her hair up into a loose bun. Her dad handed her a short grocery list. "Feel like making dinner? You always did a mean garlic butter pasta," he said. "Take the truck. She still runs, mostly." She smiled. "I'll charm her if she doesn't." Downtown Kill Devil Hills was small but alive with local charm. Surf shops, ice cream stands, and fishermen with sun-split skin leaning against wooden posts. At the grocery store, she bumped into 2 people who swore they remembered her from bonfire nights and 4th of July parades. "You haven't changed a bit," one woman said. "Well, maybe a little taller." Savannah filled her cart with everything she needed. Pasta, fresh herbs, a small bottle of wine, and a bouquet of wildflowers she couldn't resist. She moved through the aisles with the confidence of someone who didn't belong but was trying not to stand out. The cashier, a girl a few years younger, blinked twice. "You're, the Whitmore girl, right?" Savannah just smiled. "That's me." Outside, the sun was sinking fast, tinting the sky with brushstrokes of amber and rose. She loaded the bags into the truck and reached for her phone to check the time. Battery, 9%. She glanced at the dashboard. No USB port, of course. "Old school it is," she muttered, starting the engine and backing out with a soft cough from the exhaust. The road home wound along the dunes and narrow marshland stretches. She tapped her fingers against the wheel, humming a tune that reminded her of childhood summers. The breeze was cooler now, almost moody, and the headlights cast long shadows on the 2-lane road. A warning light blinked on the dashboard, but she ignored it, too used to her dad's car having quirks. A mile out, the truck hiccuped. Then again, a rattling sound echoed under the hood, and Savannah's grip on the wheel tightened. "Come on, not now," she whispered. The steering grew heavy. She pulled over onto the sandy shoulder, heart sinking with the final sputter of the engine. She grabbed her phone, 3%. She tapped it, begged it, but the screen dimmed and died in her hand. "Perfect," she said out loud to no one, climbing out of the truck into the rising night. The ocean was somewhere beyond the dunes, its crash distant but rhythmic, like a lullaby she used to know. The silence settled around her like a blanket. No cars, no lights, just the soft hum of cicadas and the salty smell of seagrass. She leaned against the truck, debating whether to walk or wait, when headlights flickered in the distance. A low, steady rumble approached, different from most of the cars she saw around town. A deep red 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle rumbled into view, polished to a shine that caught even the twilight. The driver slowed down, then pulled over a few feet ahead of her. The door creaked open, and out stepped a guy about her age, tall, athletic build, with jet black hair and the kind of sun-bronzed skin you only got from living outdoors. "You okay?" he asked, voice calm, curious. She blinked. His face looked familiar somehow, but her mind couldn't place it. "Yeah, well, no. Truck died. Phone's dead, too." He tilted his head, studying the old Ford like he was checking on a friend in the hospital. "That's Whitmore's truck, right, Dr. Graham?" She nodded. "You know my dad?" He smirked, running a hand through his messy hair. "Everyone knows everyone here, and yeah, I remember you. Savannah, right? Summer of 2019? You were into stargazing and mint chocolate chip?" Her eyes narrowed. "I'm sorry, It's okay," he laughed. "You had braces back then. I didn't make much of an impression." He held up his phone. "Want to call your dad?" She hesitated, then reached out. "Thanks." As she dialed, he added, "Not that it matters. If you call him, he'll call my grandpa, and guess who gets dragged out here anyway?" She laughed, the sound soft. "God, I missed how small this place is." He leaned casually against the Javel, arms crossed with that easy kind of confidence only small-town boys seem to master. "By the way, I'm Jesse Holloway," he added, offering a hand that was slightly calloused but warm. Savannah took it, nodding slowly, still trying to place the memory. "Savannah Whitmore," she replied, even though he clearly already do. As they climbed into his car, the old leather seats groaned softly beneath them, the dashboard glowing faintly. "I'll bring your dad's truck back good as new by tomorrow morning," Jesse said with a grin, starting the engine. Savannah laughed. "New? That truck barely made it off the lot in the 80s. He shrugged, shifting into drive. "You gotta respect your elders." The ride back to the house was slower this time. Quiet music playing low from the radio, something soft and guitar-heavy that matched the way the night wrapped around them. They chatted in spurts about where she'd been where he hadn't gone, and how much Outer Banks had stayed exactly the same. "This road still has that weird dip," she pointed. He chuckled, "And it always will." As they pulled into the gravel drive, her porch light flickered on like a memory waking up. "Appreciate the rescue," Savannah said as she unbuckled. Jesse leaned on the steering wheel. "Any time, really. And hey, we're doing a bonfire on the beach tomorrow night, luau style, full moon and all. You should come." She tilted her head. "You mean like Twilight vibes?" He blinked, not catching the joke. "I mean, yeah, there'll probably be someone with a guitar." Savannah smiled. "Sure, why not? Might be fun." Jesse's grin widened, teeth flashing in the dim light. "All right then. We'll be down at Jockey's Ridge near the dunes." She nodded. "Hard to miss. Not much has changed around here in 3 years." The next morning, Savannah rose early with sunlight stretching long across her bedroom floor. The ocean breeze still found its way through the windows, rustling the lace curtains like playful fingers. She made coffee the way her dad used to, strong, slightly burnt, and way too hot. Outside, the sound of tires crunching gravel made her peek through the screen. Jesse stood in the driveway, wiping his hands on a rag. The Ford F-150 was idling behind him, running smoother than it ever had. "Told you," he called as she stepped out onto the porch. "She's good as new." Savannah raised an eyebrow. "You sure you didn't just trade her in for a twin?" Friend of Jesse's sat in the red Chevelle behind, waiting with the engine humming. "Just needed a little love and an oil filter," Jesse said, handing her the keys. "Tell your dad she should hold together for another decade, minimum." She smiled, genuinely impressed. "I'll tell him you're some kind of wizard." Jesse gave a casual wave as he backed toward the other car. "Don't forget the luau tonight. Starts at sundown." The rest of the afternoon drifted by like a lazy tide. Savannah helped her dad organize a few notebooks on the porch, watching him sketch out ideas for turtle migration patterns. He talked about ecosystems and warming currents while she nodded and asked questions. It wasn't thrilling, but it felt grounding, like roots she forgot she had. Later she went for a walk along the edge of the beach, sandals in hand, feet sinking slightly into the warm sand. A few children chased each other with kites, their laughter carried by the breeze. Every now and then someone nodded at her like she belonged there. It was strange, that feeling of being known by people you didn't really know. Back at the house, she stood in front of the mirror for longer than expected, trying to decide what beach bonfire looked like in her wardrobe. She finally settled on a soft, off-shoulder top, cream-colored with lace trim, and a flowing midi skirt that moved. When she walked, her hair, sun-kissed from the day, fell naturally in soft waves. Her dad peeked his head into the hallway as she grabbed a sweater. "Going out?" he asked, his voice teasing. She nodded, pulling on a pair of sandals. "Some luau thing. Jesse invited me." Her dad paused, a faint smile on his lips. "Holloway? Good kid, wild but good." Savannah arched an eyebrow. "Wild? Used to be," he said. "He's mellowed some." As the sun began to dip, the sky bled into shades of peach and indigo, casting a dreamy filter over the sleepy town. Savannah made her way down the familiar paths toward Jockey's Ridge, the sound of laughter, music, and the distant hiss of fire beginning to rise. She could already smell the salt, the smoke, and the faint sweetness of toasted marshmallows. In the distance, tiki torches were stuck into the sand, casting soft circles of light. A crowd had already formed. Locals, tourists, surfers. A cooler sat buried halfway in the sand. Music played from a small speaker nestled between towels. Jesse was there, holding a red plastic cup and laughing with someone she didn't recognize. When he saw her, his expression shifted, not surprised. Expecting. Like she'd always been meant to walk across that beach toward him. He made his way over, brushing sand off his jeans. "You made it," he said, eyes scanning her slowly. "You look not like someone who grew up here." She laughed softly. "Is that a compliment?" He smirked, offering her a drink. "There's soda in there too, promise." She took a sparkling water, their fingers brushing briefly. "Nice crowd," she said, looking around. "I figured I'd know less people." Jesse nodded. "Most haven't changed. That's Outer Banks for you. Same sand, same stories, different." Tides. They wandered closer to the fire, where someone passed around a guitar and another offered her a marshmallow on a stick. Savannah politely declined, focusing instead on the way the fire danced in Jesse's eyes. He talked about the surf, how the winds had changed this season, and a local fisherman who swore he saw dolphins in pairs like soulmates. For a moment she let herself just listen, really listen, to the way he spoke. He was passionate without trying, vibrant without needing attention. It wasn't the wildness her dad hinted at that caught her off guard. It was the softness hiding behind it. She caught herself wondering who Jesse Holloway really was. Underneath the sun and the salt in the stories, they didn't kiss. They didn't touch. But when the fire crackled louder and someone shouted about the moon being at its highest, Jesse looked at her like he'd found something rare. "You ever think some people come back just to remember what they were made of?" he asked. Savannah nodded slowly. "Maybe some come back to find something new." The guitar had been sitting by the log bench all evening, untouched until 1. The guys nudged Jesse with a grin. "Come on, man, just one song." Another chimed in. "Don't make us beg like last time." Jesse rolled his eyes dramatically, then stood up with a sigh that was more for show than anything else. "Fine. But if I hit a wrong chord, I'm blaming the beer." Savannah watched with mild curiosity as he walked toward the guitar, brushing sand from his jeans. She wasn't sure what to expect. Maybe something loud and messy, like his laugh. He sat down near the fire again, adjusted the strap, and let his fingers fall into rhythm. The first few notes were soft, almost hesitant, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone. Then he started to sing. His voice was low, clear, and surprisingly tender. It held a rasp that only made it more real, like someone who hadn't planned to be vulnerable but decided to be anyway. Savannah blinked, taken off guard. Conversations around the fire faded without anyone asking. Even the ocean sounded quieter, as if it were listening too. She leaned her chin on her knee, watching him through firelight. He didn't perform like someone used to the spotlight. He sang like he meant every word. It was a song about waves and waiting. Simple, beautiful, and exactly right for that stretch of beach. Savannah didn't realize she was smiling until Emily sat beside her, too close, smelling like coconut and envy. Didn't expect him to sing that one, Emily muttered. Savannah glanced sideways but said nothing. Jesse finished to quiet applause, handing the guitar to someone else like it meant nothing. He stood, stretched, and after exchanging a few playful shoves with friends, turned to Savannah with a crooked smile. "Walk?" She nodded and stood, brushing off sand. They moved away. From the fire, the chatter fading behind them. The beach stretched out under moonlight, a silver ribbon between the world and the water. "You've got a good voice," she said after a minute. "Didn't expect it." "Thanks," he shrugged. "I try to hide my talents. Keeps expectations low." "Do you play often?" "Now and then, mostly at Driftwood Tavern. It's this little place up on Hatteras Lane." Savannah nodded. "Do they pay you in cash or fried shrimp?" He grinned. "You joke, but the hush puppies are basically currency there." They walked in silence a bit more, feet sinking softly to the cool sand. "You've changed," Jesse said eventually. She looked over. "From what?" "From what I remember. You were younger, quieter. Always with your mom when you visited." She nodded. "That was 3 summers ago. A lot changes in 3 years." "Clearly," he hesitated. "Anyway, glad you're back." Back at the fire, Emily was still nursing the same drink and glaring in their direction. Jesse didn't seem to notice. "That's Emily," he said casually, noticing Savannah's glance. "We used to date, didn't end well." "Why not?" Savannah asked, not accusing, just curious. She didn't like sharing, or people who said no. She doesn't seem thrilled I'm here. "That's her problem." He said it evenly, with no venom, just fact. "Besides, you're not here for her." Savannah didn't answer. The tide was coming in, brushing close to their feet. The moonlight played along the waves like silver ribbon unraveling across the earth. As they walked back toward the fire, Jesse grabbed 2 drinks from the cooler. 1 beer, 1 soda. "Here," he said, handing her the soda. "I remembered." She took it with a nod. "Thanks." "You really don't drink?" he asked, sipping from his own bottle. "Nope." "Smart." He clinked his bottle gently against hers. They sat side by side, close but not touching, watching sparks rise into the night sky. Someone told a story about a ghost crab invasion last summer. Another challenged someone else to a race to the dunes. But Savannah stayed still, finishing her soda slowly. Jesse leaned back, resting on his elbows. "You always this quiet?" he asked. "Only when I'm listening," she replied, which made him laugh. "Your trouble," he said. In slow motion. She looked at him, eyebrow raised. "And your what, trouble in surround sound?" "Probably," he smiled. "You'll see." She didn't say it, but she already had. Later, when the fire had shrunk to glowing coals and most people were dancing barefoot in the sand or sprawled out telling secrets, Savannah stood. I should go. Jessie stood with her. Want me to walk you? She shook her head. I'm close. I remember the way. He nodded, not pushing. Night city girl. Night beach boy. Back at her dad's house, she slipped off her shoes and crept upstairs. The hallway was quiet. Her father was still out. She tiptoed into her room, washed her face, and changed into a soft tee and shorts. Crawling under the covers, she laid, still in the dark, the sound of the waves lingering in her ears. And Jessie's voice. That stayed longer than she expected. Sometimes, even a still morning carries the promise of something unexpected. Savannah opened her eyes to the soft scent of pine drifting through the screened windows and the quiet creaks of an old house warming in the sun. The morning light danced lazily along the wooden floorboards as if stretching with her. She reached for her phone, checked the time, then spotted a folded note on the kitchen table beside a mug of half-drunk coffee. Coastal Wetlands Tour ran. Long. Back after dark. Fridge has eggs. Love you. Dad. She smiled. It wasn't surprising. Her father had always gotten swept up in his research, especially here in Outer Banks, where his heart belonged more to the tide than any city. Skyline. She made a quick breakfast, threw on denim shorts and a soft linen blouse, and stepped outside with a quiet sense of freedom. The day passed like something out of a memory. Savannah revisited the beach where she once learned to bodyboard, the tiny bookshop with its crooked shelves, and the weather-worn pier that always made her feel smaller in the best way. She bought a lemonade from a roadside stand and sat by the marina, watching boats rock gently against their ropes, feeling the sun press against her shoulders. By late afternoon, the clouds softened into a peach haze, and Savannah stopped at the market to pick up a few things. She grabbed a bag of popcorn, some chocolate-covered almonds, and a bottle of sparkling apple juice. Her plan was simple. A night on the couch, windows open, and an old movie she'd seen too many times. Something familiar before everything else began to change. As she walked out with her paper bag cradled in one arm, she instinctively checked her phone. Still no messages. No missed calls. Jessie hadn't texted all day. She wasn't expecting fireworks or declarations. But a part of her had hoped he'd reach out. Maybe just a hey. Maybe just to see if she was still around. But her thoughts froze mid-step. Parked in front of her house, leaning casually against the deep red 1970 Chevelle like he'd always belonged there, was Jesse. His sunglasses hung from the collar of his shirt, arms crossed, expression unreadable but confident. Savannah blinked. Is this your new job now? Front yard security detail? He grinned and pushed off the car. Just making sure the neighborhood stays safe. Also figured I'd give you a ride somewhere, since clearly you're struggling under the weight of popcorn. She laughed as he took the bag from her. You're here to take me out, without calling. You've heard of texting, right? Sure, he said, following her up the steps. But I didn't have your number. And to be fair, I don't remember half of last night. There was moonlight, music. Possibly you singing something off-key? She unlocked the door with a raised brow. I had plans, by the way, a couch, a blanket, some Oscar-winning buttered popcorn. He leaned on the doorframe, unapologetic. That sounds tragic. You came all the way to the coast just to watch. Netflix like someone who's allergic to sand? She glanced back at him, amused. If you want, you can join. I even have chocolate. Tempting, he said. But there's a group heading out to Silver Shoal tonight. Full moon, tide's warm, you can't miss it. I'm not swimming at night, she said deadpan. That's how people die in movies. He laughed, already turning back toward the car. That's only in places with sharks, which is not here. Probably. She rolled her eyes. But 20 minutes later, there she was, backpack over her shoulder, sliding into his passenger seat. The drive was short but scenic, winding through narrow roads shadowed by tall pines and glowing street lamps. The sound of cicadas filled the air like static. When they arrived, the beach was already alive with soft guitar chords, laughter, and the glow of portable lanterns tucked into sandbanks. Familiar voices called Jessie over. Savannah kept close to the edge at first, letting her feet sink into the cool sand. She wasn't shy, but she liked observing first. Jessie disappeared into the group, returning moments later with 2 drinks. "Don't worry," he said, offering her a bottle. "Sparkling water. I remember at least that much from last night." She took it with a quiet thanks, sipping as she watched him rejoin the others. The bonfire cast gold across his face, and he moved like someone who belonged to every space he walked into. Still, there it was, the beer bottle in his other hand, the easy way he reached for another after that. She didn't say anything, but she noticed. Hours later, most of the group had wandered off toward parked trucks or quieter corners. Jessie reappeared at her side, rubbing the back of his neck. "Hey, I think I need to call it. Too much everything. You good to head back?" She nodded, standing up and brushing the sand from her shorts. The drive home was soft and quiet. Windows down, the breeze saltier now. He talked just enough, told her a story about his friend losing a shoe to a crab once. She laughed. He smiled like he didn't get to hear that sound often. When they pulled up to her house, she didn't move right away. "Give me your phone," she said. He blinked. "What?" "So I can put my number in, and next time you can ask before ambushing my popcorn night." He handed it over with a small grin, and she typed quickly, saving it as Savannah. Then she looked at him. "Text me when you get home, so I know you're okay." "It's a 10-minute drive." "Exactly," she said. "You have no excuse." He chuckled and nodded. All right. She watched him leave, the Chevelle rumbling low as it disappeared down the road. Then she headed inside, slipping into the shower, letting the day rinse off her shoulders. By the time she stepped out, hair wrapped in a towel and skin warm from steam, her phone lit up. A selfie from Jessie, messy hair, shirtless, standing in front of his bathroom mirror. Home. Washed, half-human, hibernation mode activated. She smiled, snapped one of herself in a robe, and typed back, "Likewise. Sleep well, Chevelle." Savannah woke up to the sound of a bird tapping its beak against her window and the distant hum of a lawnmower. The light was already streaming through the white curtains, warming the edges of her quilt. She reached for her phone and found a video from Jessie, already covered in grease at the auto shop. The timestamp said 6:02 a.m. She blinked at the screen, still trying to unstick her thoughts from sleep. Jessie grinned in the video, his hair a mess and his sleeves rolled up. "Some of us are productive before breakfast," he joked, spinning a wrench in his hand. Savannah smiled despite herself and replied with a selfie of her holding a mug. "This is the only tool I know how to handle before 10. He texted back instantly. "There's still time to teach you, city girl. Meet me for lunch. Taking you somewhere." "Nobody finds me." Savannah raised an eyebrow, taking a sip of her coffee. That sounded exactly like the kind of line someone would use to lure her into a horror movie. But knowing Jessie, it probably involved a hidden beach and loud music. She typed back, "Do you ever ask or just announce plans and expect me to follow?" His reply came fast. "If I ask, you'll say you're staying in to binge watch a show with subtitles and tea. That's what city girls do, right?" Savannah smirked. "Define city girl." "The kind that shows up, makes everything feel different, and disappears." Her smile faded just a little. That wasn't entirely wrong. "Fine," she texted. But if you want me to remember this day, you're not drinking, deal? His answer was a thumbs-up emoji, followed by, promise, picking you up in 2. Savannah rolled her eyes, already heading to her room to get dressed. When he pulled up, she was waiting on the porch in a loose floral blouse and denim shorts, her hair tied back in a messy bun. He whistled low, stepping out of the Chevelle. "You're lucky I brought my good car." "You only have one car," she said. "Still my best one," he shrugged. They stopped by the local market first to grab snacks and drinks. Inside, a group of Jesse's friends ran into them, grabbing him into loud backslaps and asking if they'd come for the cookout. "Can't," Jesse said, glancing at Savannah. "Already got plans." One of the guys winked. "Looks like better plans anyway." He drove further than she expected, winding through stretches of untouched green, trees tall and wild on either side. "Nobody really comes out here," he said, finally pulling into a clearing. There was a picnic table, the hint of a river glistening through the brush, and silence. It was breathtaking. It felt untouched. Savannah stepped out slowly, taking it all in while Jesse unpacked the food and a small speaker. She helped set up the table, laying out sandwiches, fruit, and 2 cans of soda. "This is beautiful," she said. "Why don't you bring more people here?" "Because then it wouldn't be mine anymore," he said, smiling. They sat for hours, eating, talking, laughing. Jesse shared stories about growing up with his grandfather after losing both his parents in a car accident. Savannah listened quietly, her hand resting gently near his on the table. "Do you ever think about leaving here?" she asked softly. He hesitated. "Used to, not lately." "Maybe you should again," she said. "You're still young. You don't have to settle for what life handed you when you were 15. Jesse looked at her like he wasn't used to hearing that, like no one had said it to him in years. "You talk like someone who knows exactly what she wants." "Maybe I do," she said. They ended up swimming in the river, the water cool and clear. Savannah hesitated before taking off her cover-up, but Jesse had already turned to give her privacy. Once in, they splashed, floated, and just existed. 2 people momentarily separate from everything else. It was the most peaceful she'd felt in weeks. Later, Jesse pulled out his guitar from the back seat and strummed quietly, singing something soft as she dried off in the grass. Just as she was about to ask what song it was, the sharp sound of honking snapped the calm. Jesse looked up, his expression tightening. A black SUV parked nearby. "Oh no," he muttered. From the passenger side stepped Emily, her hair perfectly curled and her expression perfectly unreadable. "Of course," Savannah said dryly. "You brought your ex, or all of them." "I didn't," Jesse said, rubbing the back of his neck. "The guys probably told her where I was. She knew." Savannah gave a tight smile. "It's fine. We're not doing anything wrong." But Jesse's energy shifted. Around his friends, he was louder, brighter, almost like he needed to prove something. He drank quickly, easily, like it was a reflex. Savannah watched, keeping her thoughts to herself. She laughed when he pulled her into jokes, smiled when he teased her, but something sat heavy inside her chest. Emily made snide comments, but Savannah let them slide. She didn't play petty games. She was here to enjoy the day, not win some unspoken battle. But as the sun dipped lower, she turned to Jesse. "Could you take me home?" she asked. "I didn't tell my dad I'd be gone all day." "Yeah, sure," he said. His speech was still clear, but he was looser. "Want to drive?" She raised a brow. "Are you sure?" "Why not?" he said, tossing her the keys. "Just don't drive like you're in a parade." She took the wheel, steady hands on the leather, and drove in silence for a few miles. When they arrived at her house, she handed him back the keys. He followed her to the porch. "So, you didn't have a good time?" "I did," she said. "The place, the river, everything was amazing, even your friends." He nodded slowly. But you promised not to drink, and then you did. That matters to me." He blinked. "It was just a couple beers." "Doesn't matter," she said, voice calm but firm. "You made a promise, and if you want me to stay different from those city girls you keep talking about, then don't treat me like they don't matter." And with that, she walked inside and closed the door behind her. Savannah stirred to the smell of coffee and the familiar clinking of pans downstairs. She walked barefoot into the kitchen, hair still messy from sleep, finding her father at the stove, flipping eggs like a man with too much energy for a Saturday. "Morning." "Morning, superstar," he said with a grin. "Thought I'd make us something old-fashioned before you run off with that Chevelle boy again." She narrowed her eyes, amused. "Seriously? Chevelle boy?" He shrugged, piling eggs onto 2 plates. "It's either that or Jesse. Are you two, I don't know, dating?" Savannah rolled her eyes and laughed. "You sound like you're trying to be young again." "I am young," he shot back. 42 and still on the market." Savannah smiled as she grabbed 2 mugs. "Sure, Dad. I bet there's a sun-kissed boho artist lady on the coast just dreaming of you." He raised an eyebrow. "There was 2 of them, actually. But I picked the 3rd one. She makes better coffee." They both laughed and took their breakfast to the small table by the window. After a few bites, her father set his fork down and leaned back. "I like Jesse. Always did. Kid's got heart, but hard road. You know, he bounced from house to house after his parents died. Ate at neighbors. Worked way too young." Savannah paused, fork in hand, taking it all in. "He doesn't really talk about that." Her father nodded slowly. "He probably won't. People like Jesse carry their stories like bruises, quiet, deep, and mostly healed over. But he's a good one, Savannah. I just hope he knows how to take care of himself." She looked down at her plate, chewing on that sentence more than her eggs. "Me too," she whispered. Later that night, they picked a movie. Nothing heavy, just something with enough charm to fill the silence. Her dad lasted 6 minutes before he was out cold, snoring gently, arms crossed on his chest. Savannah smirked and reached for her phone, mindlessly opening Instagram as the title credits rolled. And there he was. Jesse, in another photo someone else had posted, half grinning with a beer in hand, surrounded by the same faces from the last party. Savannah stared at the image for a long moment, lips pressed together. Something in her chest sank. Not anger, but the tired sigh of disappointment. She locked her screen and turned back to the movie. The next morning, her father had already taken the car. A sticky note on the fridge said, "Carpool fell through, had to grab the truck, stretch your legs today." Savannah poured herself some orange juice and stared at the road from the porch. Then her phone buzzed. It was Jesse. "Can I stop by?" She replied, "You're asking now, not just showing up like a cowboy?" He sent back, trying something new. "Can I?" She paused, then typed, "Sure, but only if you bring that terrible sense of fashion with you." They walked along the beach as the sun rose higher, her wide-brimmed hat shielding her face, his oversized sunglasses still hanging crookedly. Neither of them rushed the conversation. Jesse kicked at the sand. "I've been thinking about what you said about drinking. I honestly didn't mean to break the promise. It's like I forgot I even made one." Savannah's gaze stayed on the waves. "I know. That's kind of the point. You didn't just break it, Jesse. It didn't even register. You hide behind it. Maybe not on purpose, but that's how it looks. You become someone else when you drink. He looked away, expression tight. It's not about controlling you. It's about caring. He exhaled, long and low. It's been like that since high school. It's just what we all do. It's easy, no thinking, no silence. She turned to face him. But you're not in high school anymore, and you don't need alcohol to be liked. I saw how your friends love you, Jesse. They'll still be there without the bottle in your hand. He hesitated. So, what, you want me to stop? No, she said, gentle but firm. I want you to choose to stop for yourself. Not for me, not for appearances. You deserve more clarity in your life. His throat bobbed and he nodded, a little too fast. I'll try. But then he dropped his eyes. What happens when you leave? She furrowed her brows. What do you mean? He shrugged. I get it. Summer fling. You go back to med school dreams and dorm rooms. I stay here, same town, same loops, same parties. Savannah's voice was steady. If all I leave you with is one less drink a week, then I'll still feel proud. That landed. Then he muttered, sounds like something Emily would have said. Savannah stopped walking. Her hands dropped to her sides. Wow, she said, not loudly but sharp. That's not fair. Jesse froze. I didn't mean it like, yes you did, she cut in. And it's okay, you're scared. But don't you ever compare me to someone who only tried to control you because she couldn't fix herself. The tension between them thickened like summer heat. Jesse reached for her chin, tried to lift her face toward his. Savannah, I didn't. She pushed his hand away. Don't. But. He leaned in anyway. She flinched. Jesse. And then his lips were on hers. She shoved him back without thinking, her palm striking his cheek with a sound that surprised even her. They stood there, both stunned, him with his head slightly turned, her with wide eyes and stammered breath. I'm sorry, she said, taking a step back, then another. I didn't mean to. She turned and ran, barefoot across the sand toward the boardwalk. Jesse didn't follow. Not right away. The only thing that chased her was the echo of her own pulse in her ears, and the sound of the sea, constant, wild, and impossible to silence. Savannah spent most of the day avoiding her reflection. Not in mirrors, but in her own thoughts. Her chest felt heavy, not with guilt for the slap itself, but for how she had spoken to him. Jesse was just a boy. A good one, messy and stubborn, but good. And she'd thrown truths at him like they'd make him grow faster. But growth didn't work like that. You couldn't force someone to evolve on your timeline. It hurt more because she saw his potential, saw someone better trying to fight through the fog. She picked up her phone twice that morning, thumb hovering over his name, but each time, she locked it again. That afternoon, she was curled on the couch when she opened Instagram, scrolling through sleepy eyes. One of Jesse's friends had posted a story at the Driftwood, the little seaside bar everyone seemed to love. There they were, tuning guitars, joking, cans of beer in hands. But Jesse? Jesse was holding a bottle of water. Coincidence? Maybe. But it was enough to stir her from the couch. She stood, walked to her closet, and took a little too long picking out something to wear. Something light, summer soft, that made her feel like she had control of the moment. She told her dad she was going out for a bit, keys already in hand. The Driftwood was just off the main road, nestled between two surf shops, with a painted sign that looked like it had weathered decades. Savannah stepped inside, letting the salt and sound wash over her. Jesse and his friends were on stage, the crowd already swaying. She sat at the bar. The bartender smiled when he caught her watching them. Locals' favorites, he said, nodding toward the stage. They don't play perfect, but they play like they mean it. Savannah smiled softly. That's usually better. She turned back to Jesse just as he caught sight of her. He didn't wave, didn't stop the song, but his smile widened, unmistakable, warm and boyish, like seeing her change the color of the room. Toward the end of the set, he stepped up to the mic. "Wrote this one last week," he said, voice low, still figuring it out. "Thought I'd test it on y'all." The melody was gentle, like an apology sung through ocean breeze. The lyrics were rough around the edges, but real. About finding light in people who weren't trying to fix you. Just hold the match steady while you lit yourself. Savannah's breath caught. That was her. Or maybe it was who he saw her as. Midway. Through the song, a man leaned against the bar beside her. Tall, tan with cologne too strong and ego dripping from his grin. "You here for the music?" he asked. She glanced at him, polite but distant. "Kind of, just here." "What's your name?" he pushed. "I'm waiting for someone," she replied. He smirked, not discouraged. "Let me guess. That guy?" He jabbed a thumb toward Jesse. "Come on. You don't really want the small-town bar band hero. You want someone who can handle a real girl." Savannah blinked slowly. "I'm good, thanks." But his hand lingered on the bar, too. Close. Then Jesse was there. "Everything okay?" he asked, voice calm but direct. The man laughed, tilting his drink. "Didn't realize she had a bodyguard, or is it boyfriend? Little young for this game, aren't you?" Jesse's jaw clenched. "She said she's good, so walk away." "Or what?" the guy sneered. "You gonna sing me into silence?" Jesse didn't answer with words. He swung first, clean, sharp, and catching the man in the jaw. The bar erupted, chairs scraped, people shouted. Jesse's bandmates jumped in, fists flying like some messy ballet choreographed by rage and loyalty. Savannah watched in horror and awe. Then Jesse grabbed her hand. "Let's go." They bolted out the back exit, breath ragged, her pulse racing. He opened the door of his Chevelle and helped her in, wiping a cut above his brow with the back of his hand. "You're bleeding," she said, reaching into her purse for tissues. "It's nothing," he muttered. "That guy, Grayson, he's a regular idiot. Always runs his mouth. Not the first time I've had to remind him he doesn't own this town." She dabbed gently at the blood, her fingers soft but firm. "You guys fight a lot?" He smiled crookedly. "Only when they deserve it." She laughed under her breath. "Well, good to know you're the sheriff of Outer Banks." "Damn right," he said, mock proud. "Keeping the peace with bruised knuckles and charm." They drove until they hit a quiet beach road, parking, near a moonlit stretch of sand. Savannah stepped out first, toes digging into the cool sand. Jesse followed, slower, his breath still a little shaky. She took his hand. No words. Just fingers laced with fingers, both of them breathing in salt and calm. After a few minutes, she said softly, "I'm sorry for slapping you." He winced. "Honestly, that hurt less than Grayson's punch." She laughed, bumping his shoulder with hers. "I overreacted." "You were right," he said. "I crossed a line. It won't happen again." Savannah smiled. "Well, next time, maybe lose the sunglasses, lift my hat, and do it like a Nicholas Sparks movie." Jesse turned to her, gaze soft and reverent. "You think this place is cinematic?" She looked around at the water, the moon, the trees whispering overhead. "Don't you?" "Then let's make it count," he whispered, cupping her face. And this time, when he kissed her, slow, careful, she didn't pull away. The morning light stretched across the sand like a slow yawn, golden and warm. Savannah stirred first, blinking against the early brightness and finding Jesse still asleep beside her, one arm under his head, the other draped lazily across his stomach. He looked calm, almost boyish, nothing like the sharp-mouthed guy from the bar. For a moment she just watched him breathe, When he opened his eyes, it was with a lazy smile. "You always stare at people when they sleep," he mumbled. She laughed softly. "Only when they snore as cute as you do." He stretched, looked out at the quiet waves, then turned back to her. "I should get you home. You still gotta reclaim the Chevelle." They drove in silence at first, windows down, wind brushing past like a soundtrack. Jessie hummed along to the song playing low on the radio, and Savannah watched the morning unfold through the passenger side, already knowing she'd remember this ride long after the summer ended. When they pulled up beside the old truck, Jessie parked and hopped out. "Let me follow you home," he said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Just in case she coughs or stalls again. She's got trust issues." Savannah smiled, slid into the driver's seat, and gave the dashboard a gentle pat. 10 minutes later, the truck crunched over the gravel of her driveway. Her father was already on the porch with a mug of coffee, sunglasses shielding his eyes. When he saw Jessie step out behind her, he raised a brow. "Look who survived the night," he said. "Let me warm up some more coffee." Inside, the three sat around the small kitchen table, mismatched mugs in hand, the morning sun painting everything gold. Her dad made a few dry jokes. Jessie countered with his usual sarcasm, and Savannah sat between them, like two versions of the same spirit. Years apart, it felt good. After a while, her father stood and grabbed his keys. "I've got to meet someone about the boat," he said. "Sav, if you need anything. Jesse looks like he knows how to operate a vehicle." Jessie grinned. "Most days." Savannah rolled her eyes. "I think I'll survive." When they were alone, Jessie rocked back slightly in his chair. "I should probably go shower. I smell like campfire and bad decisions." Savannah tilted her head, a teasing smile tugging at her lips. "You could come back. I was going to make lunch. Something that doesn't involve sand or shouting." He laughed, standing slowly. "Are you going to make me sit on a couch and watch movies like a functioning adult?" She leaned against the door frame. "I might. Could be a turning point in your development." "Dangerous," he said, pointing at her. "You're starting to sound like a girlfriend." She didn't say anything to that, just smiled. He returned an hour later, hair still damp, a clean shirt half wrinkled, and a fresh look in his eyes. She was finishing something in a skillet, barefoot in the kitchen, and he paused in the doorway just to take it in. "Smells like trust issues and domestic bliss," he said. "Come eat," she replied. They ate on the back porch, paper plates in hand, feet kicked up. The food was simple, grilled cheese, some kind of salad she whipped up, but he swore it was the best meal he'd had in weeks. "You always cook like this?" "I always impress guys with basic carbs," she replied. After lunch, they moved to the couch. Savannah handed him the remote. "Pick something," she said. "Your soul's first movie." "This feels dangerous," he muttered, flipping through options. He settled on an old adventure flick, the kind with explosions and unlikely escapes. "Compromise?" They settled in. Jessie made it 30 minutes before blurting, "Okay, I get it. This is nice." Savannah laughed, curled under a throw blanket. "Was that painful to admit?" "Only slightly. The worst part? My phone won't stop buzzing." He held it up. Messages, memes, invites, always on call. "You can go," she said gently. "I'm not keeping you." He shook his head. "Nah, I want to be here." And just like that, it wasn't about escaping the noise. It was about choosing the quiet, and choosing her. Later, as the sun lowered and the shadows stretched, she nudged him. "We could still meet your friends tonight if you want." "You sure?" "You need your people. she said. And I don't mind them, not even Emily. Mostly, he looked at her, something new in his expression. Gratitude or awe or something somewhere in between. Then let's make a night of it, he said. And it wasn't a big moment, but it was the beginning of something. A shift, a slow, certain step into we. The night unfolded in warm tones and laughter, bonfire crackling as the group gathered by the shore. Savannah found herself sitting on a log between Eva and Theo, sipping soda while someone passed around a guitar. The night air was soft, smelling like wood smoke and ocean, and the stars above looked close enough to touch. Jesse was across the fire, watching her in between jokes, his smile a quiet punctuation to everything she said. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, but something about this group, Jesse's group, made her feel like she belonged. They included her with ease, teasing Jesse every time his eyes lingered on her too long. Someone tossed her a marshmallow, and she nearly dropped it, drawing playful boos and a sarcastic slow clap from Jesse. It felt good, easy, like she'd been woven into something long before she arrived. After that night, things moved slowly, but with growing certainty. Jesse started texting her in the mornings, asking if she'd slept well, if her dad had made coffee yet. She replied with sleepy selfies and photos of her breakfast, while he sent her grease-stained fingers holding flowers picked on the side of the road. Their rhythm was quiet but sure, like the tide meeting the sand every day without needing permission. Savannah found herself learning his habits, how he always picked the crust off his sandwiches, how he tapped his fingers twice before playing a song, and Jessie learned hers, how she counted steps without meaning to, how she always tied her hair up when nervous. They fit in a way that made the world quieter around them. They didn't talk about labels. They just were. It was Jesse's idea to camp. Same place, he said over the phone, but this time with a cooler, a tent, and slightly better planning. Savannah laughed, already picturing the spot. The trees bending just right, the way the river curved like it had been waiting for them. She said yes before he even finished listing snacks. They packed together the morning of, stuffing old sleeping, bags, tangled rope lights, and a speaker into the back of the Chevelle. Savannah brought marshmallows and way too many granola bars. Jesse packed 3 flannels and no socks. Priorities, he said, shrugging. Warm arms, cold toes. She rolled her eyes and kissed his cheek. By the time they reached the clearing, the sun was already sinking behind the tree line. Jesse set up the tent while Savannah laid out a blanket near the fire pit, stacking logs the way he'd shown her weeks ago. They didn't rush anything. There was no playlist this time, just crickets, the soft crush of leaves under their shoes, and the quiet between them. When the fire finally caught, it lit Jesse's face in orange and gold. He leaned back on his hands, watching the flames, like they held a secret. You know, he said, voice low, I always thought I'd leave this place someday. Like there had to be more than dusty roads and guys who never leave high school behind. Savannah turned her head, studying him. And now? She asked. He picked up a stick and stirred the fire, embers crackling. Now I think maybe the problem isn't the place. Maybe it was just me. His gaze drifted to her. But what if I tried? I mean really tried. New job, city life, something different. Do you think someone like you would wait for someone like me? She didn't hesitate. I'm not asking for later, Jesse. I'm saying yes to now. What happens after is your choice, not mine. I'm here. You're here. That's the chance. His throat worked, but no words came. Instead, he reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers like it was the only thing that made sense. The night deepened around them, trees turning to silhouettes. They talked about nothing for a while. Favorite books, the worst pizza they ever ate, The kind of things you only share when time feels like it's pausing for you. Savannah leaned her head on his shoulder and Jesse kissed. Her hair, he smelled like smoke and pine. Eventually the world grew quiet enough that their hearts did all the talking. Jesse pulled her gently to her feet and walked her to the tent, lantern swinging in his hand. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. She unzipped the flap, and they stepped inside, hearts beating louder than the wind. Inside, the tent was warm from the fire nearby. They laid side by side, facing each other, shoes off, laughter quieted. Jesse reached out first, brushing a hair from her face. "Is this okay?" he asked. "Only if you promise not to snore," she whispered, smiling. Their kiss was slower this time, softer, a silent agreement between them. Hands moved gently, as if rediscovering familiar ground. There was no rush, just trust, and the heat of something real blooming between them. Every touch felt like a promise. They didn't talk much after that. They didn't need to. The night held them close, wrapped them in a kind of peace they didn't know they'd been chasing. Jesse's breath slowed first. Savannah's followed, their limbs tangled naturally, like they were two puzzle pieces finally set in place. Sometime later, Savannah's eyes fluttered open in the dark. Jesse's arm was still around her, chest rising and falling steady. She could hear the river in the distance, the fire now only glowing embers. The world outside the tent had gone quiet. She thought he was asleep. Maybe he was. But then she heard him exhale just a little, and his voice came low, just a whisper. "She's worth it," he said, to no one and to her all at once. "Every second, every change, she's worth all of it." Savannah didn't move, didn't speak, but her heart did something that felt a lot like falling. She closed her eyes again, tears prickling quietly at the corners, not out of sadness, but because it had been so long since something had felt this true. She didn't need a city skyline or Ivy League halls in that moment. She just needed this. They woke with the sun peeking through the nylon tent. Jesse blinked first, rubbing a hand through his hair, and grinned when he saw her already watching him. "Hey," he whispered. "Hey," she whispered back. "I think I drooled on your arm," he admitted. She stretched. "I noticed. You owe me a new hoodie." He pulled her into him again, warm and sleepy. "I'll get you one in every color." She laughed. "Just don't make me wear flannel." "That's a deal breaker," he said. They cleaned up slowly, packing things into the car between shared sips of orange juice and stolen kisses. Savannah folded the blanket. Jesse doused the fire. It felt like the kind of morning you want to stretch out for as long as possible. No rush, no clocks, no world pulling them apart. Before they left the clearing, Jesse paused, hand resting on the car door. "Next time we come back, I'm bringing real pillows, and maybe a grill." Savannah arched an eyebrow. "That sounds dangerously domestic." He grinned. "You make it sound like a bad thing." "Not if it's with you." The days turned to weeks, like pages in a book Savannah didn't want to finish. Each morning brought a new ritual: coffee with her dad, a message from Jesse, a plan for where they'd spend the afternoon. They visited local spots, repeated old jokes, memorized each other's silences. Life had a rhythm that felt like it had always existed. They just hadn't found it until now. Savannah had never stayed anywhere long enough to see the town shift with the season. But now she was watching the leaves turn from deep green to edges of gold. Jesse would pick her up with the windows down, music low, always with something to say about the sky or the light or how she smelled like peaches. It wasn't poetry. It was just Jesse. And that was enough. They met each other's lives piece by piece. Savannah took him to the little bookstore her mom used to love before moving away. He showed her where he scraped his knee at 6, where he kissed a girl at 12, where he swore he'd leave at 16. Together they built something, simple but impossible to ignore. On quiet nights, Savannah lay on his chest under the stars, the rumble of his laugh under her cheek. They didn't talk about the future, not too much. The unspoken weight of her leaving hovered, but neither wanted to break the fragile beauty of what they had now. So they lived it instead. The closer August crept, the more it felt like time was no longer theirs. Savannah kept trying to bottle every moment, every laugh, every glance from Jesse that made her feel like the center of a small, perfect universe. He never said it, but she could feel it. He was trying too. Neither of them mentioned Harvard anymore. They spent more afternoons in the clearing, more nights sharing secrets under a sky smeared with stars. Jesse once brought a cheap telescope, claiming he knew what he was doing. He didn't, but she laughed, so hard she cried when he confused Mars for a plane. They kissed afterward, not because of the stars, but because they could. One night, as the wind cooled and the smell of rain teased the air, Jesse picked up his guitar and sang her something half-written. She didn't ask if it was about her. She just leaned her head on his shoulder and let the melody say what they weren't ready to. Sometimes words were too small for what they had. The morning sun peeked through the curtains with a warmth that didn't quite reach Savannah's chest. Her bags were already packed and lined up near the door, her favorite hoodie tied around her waist. In the kitchen, her dad poured her one last cup of coffee and sat beside her at the table, unusually quiet. They didn't need many words. Everything meaningful had already been said. He finally broke the silence. "Once you get settled out there, I expect a visit. My turn to see your world." Savannah smiled gently, wrapping her hands around the tea mug. "Deal, just don't bring a surfboard to Cambridge." He chuckled, eyes softening. "I love you, kid. Always did, always will." She nodded. "I love you too, Dad." Outside, the low purr of Jesse's Chevelle echoed through the quiet street. Her dad raised an eyebrow. "That your ride?" Savannah stood, brushing invisible dust off her jeans. He insisted. "Said it wasn't right if I left on a bus." Her father grinned. "He's not subtle, that one." "No," she replied, "but he's trying." Jesse leaned against the passenger door, wearing his worn-out denim jacket and that same quiet look he always had when words weren't enough. "Morning," he said softly. "Ready?" Savannah nodded, walking toward him. "As I'll ever be." He opened the door, and for a moment they stood still, neither quite moving. Not yet. The drive to the airport was quiet but not heavy. The wind through the windows played with Savannah's hair, and Jesse's fingers drummed lightly against the steering wheel. Every now and then he glanced over, as if memorizing the way she looked under that morning light. She caught him once, smiled, and didn't say a word. About halfway there, he cleared his throat and reached into his jacket. "So, I've got something." He pulled out a folded envelope, the corners slightly bent. "What's this?" she asked. "Just open it." She did, carefully, and read the bold header first. University of Massachusetts, School of Music and Sound Technology. Her eyes shot to him. "You applied?" He nodded, eyes on the road. "A while back. Didn't tell anyone." "I didn't know if I'd get in. Didn't want to jinx it. But that's kind of the idea," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Closer to you. If I make it through the first semester." Savannah blinked at the letter, still processing. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I didn't want to disappoint you, or me, or screw it up before it even started." She exhaled, half laughing. "You absolute idiot. This is amazing." He finally looked at her, and his smile was all boyish nerves and honest hope. "I wanted to do it the right way," he said. "Your dad helped. He believed I could do it." So did I. For the first time, really. She rested her hand on his. You're doing it. This is huge. Jesse nodded once, eyes glinting behind his sunglasses. Just don't expect me to wear cardigans or become a Red Sox fan. The airport came into view too quickly. Savannah's stomach turned, not from nerves but from the ache of goodbye. Jesse parked and helped her with her things, this time more slowly. Every motion seemed suspended, drawn out like he could stretch this last chapter just a few more sentences. At the curb, she turned to him, clutching the envelope in one hand and her hoodie in the other. You'll let me know as soon as you're settled? He smiled. Yeah, first thing. Maybe I'll even text you a picture of my dorm socks just to ruin the moment. She laughed, pressing her forehead to his. You better. Their kiss was slow, lingering, not desperate but sure. The kind that said, I'll see you again. She pulled back with wet lashes, stepping onto the curb. You've got this, Jessie. So do you, Harvard girl. She waved once more before disappearing. Into the crowd. He stood there long after she vanished from view. Inside the terminal, Savannah found a quiet seat by the window and opened the envelope again. Her fingers traced the edges of Jesse's acceptance letter. She imagined him walking to class, talking to new people, proving every quiet doubt in his head wrong. And somehow, even surrounded by strangers, she felt close to him. Back in Outer Banks, Jesse sat in his parked car for a long while, eyes scanning the empty passenger seat. Then he smiled, not sad, not broken, just proud. He reached for his phone and typed, When you land, I'll tell you about my new dorm socks. They're terrible. You'll love them. She landed just past noon. Her phone buzzed with that exact message, and somewhere between goodbye and what came next, both of them knew. Summer had changed everything. Harvard wasn't as loud as she expected, at least not on the inside. Savannah found herself sitting in lectures with professors who'd written the textbooks, taking notes that blurred together between glances at her phone. She thought she'd arrive as a fortress of ambition. Instead, she walked in as a girl who'd left part of herself behind. She was focused, yes, but not like before. Now everything she'd learned, she wanted to share with someone. Every small victory, a test passed, a patient stabilized in simulation, felt incomplete without Jesse hearing about it. She'd send him voice notes between classes, some rambling, some just whispering, I miss you. 2 hours away, Jesse unpacked the rest of his things into a dorm that smelled like old amps and ambition. The University of Massachusetts was bigger than his world back home, but not too big to swallow him. He kept a picture of Savannah in his desk drawer, one where she was laughing, hair flying, sunlight catching her cheek like it was made for her. He joined a campus band, worked in the audio lab, and found his rhythm quickly. His professors took note of his instincts, his raw way of hearing things others couldn't. It wasn't long before a local producer noticed him during a live session and offered him an internship at a small but reputable studio downtown. Savannah and Jesse texted constantly, traded playlists and exam stress, held video calls that stretched into the early morning hours. Still, it wasn't enough. She missed the weight of his arms, the way he'd glance sideways when teasing her, the way he listened without interrupting. She missed the ocean and the red Chevelle, too. 2 months in, they found a weekend, one precious stretch of time. Jesse took a train, his guitar slung over his shoulder, eyes full of tired excitement. Savannah met him at the station in a sweater 3 sizes too big and eyes that hadn't slept the night before. They hugged like it had been years. They didn't do anything extraordinary that weekend. Coffee, bookstores, walking aimlessly through Boston with their fingers looped together. At night they fell asleep tangled in her sheets, his heartbeat tucked beneath her ear. It wasn't perfect. It was real. It was their version of making the impossible work. Back at school, Jesse poured himself into studio work. He wrote new songs, engineered live recordings, and slowly carved a name for himself in the local circuit. A few professors sent his demos to contacts in New York and LA. One night, he received an offer, a junior position at a growing indie label in Boston. He told Savannah first. She screamed so loud her roommate thought something tragic had happened. "You're staying?" she asked through laughter. "I'm staying," he confirmed, his voice shaking just a little. "I mean, not in your dorm unless Harvard's really changed their housing rules. But yes, I'm staying." They celebrated with pizza and too much soda, slow dancing in her dorm kitchen while her roommates stared. Jesse kissed her forehead and whispered, "Told you I'd follow you anywhere." Savannah smiled and whispered back, "I didn't want you to follow me. I wanted you to walk beside me." The months that followed weren't easy. Long days, missed calls, canceled plans. But through all of it, they showed up for each other. Jesse sent Savannah songs before anyone else heard them. Savannah sent Jesse excerpts of her case studies and let him quiz her before exams. They learned how to root for each other, out loud. By the time Savannah reached her second year, Jesse had moved into a small apartment 2 subway stops from Harvard Square. His label projects were picking up. Her studies were deepening. On weekends, they'd steal hours in libraries and music bars, trading lives like secrets and still learning new sides of each other. Savannah never planned to build her future around anyone, but Jesse didn't ask her to. He just became part of the foundation, and she, for him, was never a distraction. She was a compass. They grew side by side, not by chance, but by effort and by choice. Always, always by choice. One rainy Sunday, Jesse brought coffee to her apartment, soaked and smiling. "Marry me," he said without ceremony. No ring, just eyes that knew her. She blinked. "Are you serious?" "I'm very wet and very serious." She threw her arms around him, rain and all. "You better have a towel and a plan." Later that week, he brought her to the small park where they'd shared their first weekend in Boston. This time he had a ring, a modest one, silver with a sapphire that caught the dusk. He got on one knee with shaking hands and a full heart. She said yes with tears and a laugh and 1,000 futures in her voice. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. They knew time wasn't their enemy anymore. It was just part of the soundtrack. Jesse still played guitar in the evenings, and Savannah still whispered diagnosis terms in her sleep. They cooked dinners that sometimes burned, and argued over movie plots they both misremembered. But they always came back to center, to the rhythm they wrote together. Years later, when people asked how it started, Savannah would smile and say, "He didn't believe in summer love until he met me." And Jesse, he'd just wrap his arm around her and say, "Turns out, some summers never end."